The stories of Epiphany are pointing us to who Jesus is and how he transformed the lives of those he lived alongside, as well as those across many centuries, and of course us today. So 2 weeks ago, as we celebrated Epiphany Sunday, we remembered the wise men and the gifts that they presented, the symbolism caught up in those gifts of gold, frankincense and myrrh. And of course the gifts that God has given to each of us to use in his name and in his service. And then last week we heard of the baptism of Christ and those words of revelation about Jesus. You are my son. And the affirmation of each one of us, you are my son or daughter. We each belong to God and are known and loved by him. So today we have this reading that's familiar to us from John. It's the first of the miracles, the story of the water being turned into wine. You may or you may not know that John is the fourth gospel, and in it its writers called Jesus' miracles signs. A sign that exists to point beyond itself to something else, just as the star did in the Epiphany story. The miracle stories in the Bible are pointers to the glory and power of God. And in John's writing, they're particularly there to lead us to believe in God and his son Jesus and his purposes for us. And at the very end of that reading, I read those words, they had faith. The disciples saw who Jesus was and had faith in him. But here we have an illustration of God's abundance. There was the wedding. Many, many people would have been there. Jesus was there with his mother, so perhaps it was somebody that they knew. And the wine was running out. Jesus, you'd have heard his irritation of saying, Mother, it's not my time yet. And yet the miracle happened. With those containers of water that would have been probably the size of a wheelie bin, so a vast amount of wine on top of what had already been served. The best was kept till last. We hosted a wedding last September. I think there was enough wine. And you wonder, was it really needed to have so much towards the end of this wedding? But it was the abundance and the generosity of God in turning this water into wine that's being illustrated here. Pete read to us from Psalm 36, and in it there are metaphors for God's overflowing abundance in his world. The natural images that are there and the assurance that God saves humans and animals alike makes us think of the abundant riches of creation. We see it all around us, but we're also so aware of our responsibility to take, our need to be responsible for it. There was a steward in the story of the wedding at Cana. So it is, as we know, our role as human beings to be stewards of God's earth, to make sure that our consumption is sustainable and that it's enough for everyone. We're aware of the statistics that show just how our world's wealth is so disproportionately distributed and how we need to be grateful for all we have and to share that with others. I'm sure there's stories that sometimes catch you unaware of what some people's reality really is. The other day I was doing things and listening to Woman's Hour, and the story on that really caught my attention. It was about hygiene poverty. And I was quite horrified to hear that the person speaking, who now is a well-known author and speaker, but grew up in poverty and talked about her humiliation of going to school smelling because there was no soap or clean clothes at home, about the way she had to cope when it was her period, often not having to go to school because of the embarrassment. And it made me stop and think, as I was surrounded by all the things that I need to lead my life in a place where very many of us have what we need. That was not my experience at all. It may have been yours, or it may well have been someone, you knew of someone who did. And we know that children today, not far from here, will also experience this. We live so comfortably well off. Yes, that varies, but not where none of us are in abject poverty. And we're loved by a God who's abundant in his generosity. So it got me thinking, what can we be doing to share that generosity, to share that love with those around us? What can we do that will point to the God who cares so much for each of us? Many give to food bank, and it's great to see each week that the box is filled and goes off to Chesham for those who are in need. We've collected for Christian Aid on many occasions, and a quick plug for the soup lunch next Saturday at the Manor House, where the money will again go to Christian Aid. Our Christmas collections will go to the Salvation Army and to Lindengate, and the generosity of those who came to our services will go to help many that we don't know who need shelter and support in their mental health challenges. It feels like all of that giving is just a bit too easy, and we need to take steps to find ways to share and show God's generosity that has an impact on us. At our daughter and son-in-law's church in Manchester, St. Philip's, which we did give money to last year, they make up Bags of Hope. They ask for donations of many different hygiene-related products, bag them up and distribute them to families in need, but also to the women who they encounter in that part of Manchester who are sex workers. From their website it reads, Bags of Hope is a simple idea to bless Manchester, Salford and beyond, bringing hope in unexpected places and helping to make a practical difference in someone's life. You and those you know can bring hope to people experiencing brokenness or poverty, and they support people in 5 different areas of asylum seekers, vulnerable women, those experiencing homelessness, and those that are deprived local communities. Each bag has a shopping list with 10 different items that you can be buying, and you can write a message for the person who will receive it. That's done in their part of Manchester, but it got me thinking, could we be doing something similar and find a charity in our locality that would be grateful to receive such bags? It's simple. It doesn't take an awful lot from us, but it gives so much and points to God's love to every single person who is in need of that. So look out, because I was doing this yesterday, didn't have time to think to get on this last week's update, but look out for this coming Friday's update for lists of projects that we might need. I'll put up a list too in church for those of you who don't receive the update. But I'd love us to work and to be giving to different groups of people so that our acts of kindness are not there just to make us feel better, to be signs, to be pointing beyond ourselves, themselves, to the one who is ultimately generous, the one who turns water into wine, and who shares his love and joy with all. Amen. All the usual things happening during the week, except today at 3 o'clock, it's our Connect, Create and Celebrate service, when they're going to be doing a star hunt. So if you want to come along and enjoy some more Epiphany story, then come to that. It's PCC on Wednesday night, if anybody that's on that. And then looking ahead, on the 9th of February, so 3 weeks' time, we've got a joint service and it's confirmation. So Bishop David Jennings, who is a retired bishop, is coming from Northleach, I think. Bishop David came 2 years ago and was quite wonderful. And Carol, who's sitting here, is one of the two people being confirmed. The other is Sasha Taylor, who some of you will know and is part of our 10:45 service. So please be praying for Carol and for Sasha, and come along at 10 o'clock on that Sunday morning for the confirmation. Tim and David Blackmore are starting a new home group tomorrow night. It's meeting at what time? Okay. The meeting is happening at David Blackmore's house in Western Turville at 7:30. And Tim's email is on the update if you want to be in touch to say that you'd like to join that. And as I mentioned during my sermon, on 25th, next Saturday, there's the Christian Aid soup lunch, and it's at the Manor House in Western Turville. I'm sure many of you have been there before, but it's always really popular. Delicious soup and an interesting house to go and have a quick look at as you have your soup. And raising money, as I said, for Christian Aid. So that is happening next Saturday. I think those are all the things I need to be sharing with you.